over 150 aircraft to break through Venezuela's air defenses and capture Nicolás Maduro from a fortified compound in Caracas. Meanwhile, Russian-supplied S-300s and Su-30 fighters protected the capital, and without perfect coordination, a single error could have doomed the mission and killing Delta Force members on board low-flying helicopters, starting with RC-135 rivet joint. Weeks before the raid, RC-135 rivet joints flew reconnaissance missions off Venezuela's coastline escorted by F-18 Super Hornets. These electronic intelligence aircraft were actively probing Venezuelan air defenses, forcing radar systems to turn on so they could map every single site. The 135 cataloged which frequencies Venezuelan S-100 batteries operated on, how sensitive their radar was, and exactly where each system was positioned. This signal's intelligence data became the targeting package for every aircraft that followed. Without knowing where air defenses were located and how they operated, the strike planners would be flying blind. The 135 turned Venezuelan airspace from unknown territory into a fully mapped battle space. But mapping defenses and actually penetrating them are two different problems. You need stealth surveillance inside Venezuelan airspace to confirm Maduro's location. That's the RQ-170's job. RQ-170 Sentinel stealth drone, the 170s launched from Puerto Rico. Days before the raid, flying over Caracas, completely invisible to those same radar systems the 135 had mapped. It tracked Maduro's daily routine, confirming what time he went to bed and that he was actually at the compound when helicopters launched. But surveillance can't stop Venezuela's 21 operational Su-30 fighter jets from scrambling. That's where the F-22 comes in. F-22 Raptor. The F-22 established combat air patrol directly over Caracas, ensuring no Venezuelan fighter could take off. These jets staged from Florida or Puerto Rico, using their stealth to penetrate before jamming even started. Their radar locked onto Su-30s parked at La Carlota and El Libertador air bases. The F-22's Super Cruise maintained high-energy states for hours without afterburner, maximizing time on station. But maintaining Super Cruise over Venezuela for hours burns massive fuel. The F-22s needed constant refueling to keep that combat air patrol active. That's where the tankers come in. KC-135 Stratotanker. KC-135 Stratotankers positioned themselves in orbital patterns over the Caribbean, providing aerial refueling to the entire strike package. These tankers extended fighter range and loiter time by thousands of miles. They likely established multiple refueling tracks, one for fighters maintaining combat air patrol over Caracas, another for bombers flying from the continental United States, and emergency tracks for helicopters if needed. Without aerial refueling, this entire operation shrinks to maybe 30 minutes of usable combat time. The KC-135s turned it into a 5-hour sustained operation where aircraft could stay on station as long as needed. But even with unlimited fuel, F-22s can't carry enough ground attack weapons to destroy Venezuela's S-300 batteries. That's why the F-35 showed up. F-35 Lightning. Multiple F-35s hunted and killed Venezuelan air defense systems before helicopters entered the city. Air Force F-35As from Vermont, Navy, F-35Cs from the USS Gerald R. Ford, and Marine F-35Bs all participated. Their sensor fusion physically located S-300 radar vehicles and missile launchers from 100 miles away, then slipped inside effective range to drop small-diameter bombs directly on them. The F-35s injected malicious code into Venezuelan radar networks, showing hundreds of fake aircraft while destroying real targets. They acted as forward scouts, sending target coordinates through encrypted data links to B-1 bombers and Super Hornets waiting offshore, making every other aircraft more effective. But Venezuela could still manually operate radar on backup frequencies. You need multiple layers of electronic warfare to completely blind an entire air defense network. That's where the EC-130H comes in. EC-130H Compass Call. This electronic warfare platform jams enemy communications and radar on a strategic level. While EA-18G Growlers handled tactical jamming close to targets, the Compass Call operated from standoff range, disrupting Venezuelan military communications across the entire country. The 130H can jam cell phone networks, military radio frequencies, and data links simultaneously. When the raid kicked off, Venezuelan commanders couldn't communicate with their air defense units. They couldn't coordinate a response. They couldn't even call for reinforcements because their entire communications infrastructure was being electronically suppressed. This created chaos and confusion that multiplied the effectiveness of every other aircraft. But you still need tactical jamming aircraft flying close to targets, providing direct electronic attack support. That's the Growler's job. EA-18G Growler. Multiple Growlers flew patterns directly around Venezuelan airspace, blasting electromagnetic noise across every radar frequency. Venezuelan air defense operators couldn't see anything except static and false contacts. The jamming pods targeted specific frequencies with surgical precision, making it impossible for S-300s and Buk systems to track anything. When Venezuelan operators tried burning through the jamming by increasing radar power, the Growlers fired AGM-88E advanced anti-radiation guided missiles that homed in on those emissions and destroyed the radar dishes. This made it safe for helicopters to fly into Caracas without getting lit up by surface-to-air missiles. But fixed targets like hangars and command bunkers needed destroying from standoff range. That requires massive firepower. That's where the B-1s showed up. B-1B Lancer. Multiple B-1s launched from Texas or South Dakota, staying hundreds of miles offshore, firing AGM-158B. Extended range cruise missiles suppressing Venezuela's air defense simultaneously. Even if air defenses shot down 10 missiles, another 90 still impacted their targets. The B-1s targeted hangars at La Carlota Air Base where Su-30s were parked, command and control bunkers at Fuerte Tiuna, and Presidential Guard barracks. This saturation strike kept Venezuelan defenders confused and pinned down while helicopters flew into the city. And these B-1s flying round-trip missions from the continental United States needed multiple aerials refueling from KC-135s to complete their sorties and return home. But intelligence suggested Maduro might retreat to a subterranean bunker if he detected the raid. Standard cruise missiles can't penetrate 200 feet of reinforced concrete. That's where the B-21 possibly comes in. B-21 Raider. Multiple analysts think the B-21 Raider made its combat debut during this operation. General Kane mentioned needing to breach steel doors and the threat of bunkers. The B-21, carrying a GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator, could punch through any bunker. Venezuela has collapsing tunnel networks and forcing Maduro to stay above ground where he could be captured. The B-21 could loiter over Caracas for hours, completely invisible to radar striking the moment Maduro tried going underground. If it participated, this would be the first confirmed combat deployment of America's most secret bomber. But once helicopters landed, you need jets providing immediate close air support for troops fighting in real time. That's the Super Hornet's job. FA-18 Super Hornet. Super Hornets circled high above Caracas with targeting pods scanning for threats. If Venezuelan BTR-80s or T-72 tanks tried counterattacking the compound, the Super Hornets would drop laser-guided JDAMs or fire Maverick missiles within seconds. Their infrared cameras identified individual vehicles from 20,000 feet, providing precision support without massive collateral damage. Super Hornets also escorted the helicopter formation during overwater transit, protecting them from Venezuelan patrol boats or fast attack craft. But with 150 aircraft operating in confined airspace at night, somebody needed managing all that chaos. That's why the E-2D was essential. E-2D Advanced Hawkeye. The Hawkeye tracked every friendly aircraft, assigning specific altitudes and sectors to prevent mid-air collisions. The E-2D linked into Naval Integrated Fire Control Counter-Air. If its radar detected a Venezuelan missile or drone, it passed targeting data to Super Hornets or Navy destroyers, allowing them to shoot down threats they couldn't see themselves. It's the air boss coordinating everyone's movements in real time. But before any aircraft could safely operate, you needed maritime surveillance watching Venezuelan naval assets and drug trafficking networks. That's where the Triton comes in. MQ-4C Triton. The MQ-4C Triton conducted maritime reconnaissance flights near Venezuela's coastline in the weeks leading up to the operation. This high-altitude long-endurance drone operates at 55,000 feet, detecting vessels from over 50 miles away, using its multifunction active sensor and electronic support measures. The Triton tracked Venezuelan naval frigates, ensuring they stayed in port and couldn't interfere with the carrier strike group. It also monitored narco-trafficking boats that could have been used as early warning platforms for Maduro's regime. The maritime picture the Triton provided meant planners knew exactly which sea lanes were clear for helicopter transit and which areas needed avoiding. All this air power existed for one reason: delivering special operations forces into downtown Caracas. That's where the helicopters come in. MH-47G Chinook. The 161st Special Operations Aviation Regiment flew MH-47G Chinooks as their heavy lifters carrying the entire Delta Force assault team. These helicopters flew 100 feet above the water during their approach, staying below Venezuelan radar coverage. The terrain following radar let them navigate in zero visibility through ocean mist and darkness. The Chinook's cabin carried operators, breaching equipment, K-9 units, and still had room to securely transport Maduro and his wife out as prisoners. Without this lift capacity, the mission couldn't extract everyone. but the Chinook needed a more nimble partner that could maneuver between buildings. That's the Black Hawk's job. MH-60M Black Hawk. Multiple Black Hawks flew alongside Chinooks, providing tactical flexibility. Their upgraded engines gave extra power for Caracas's 3,000-foot elevation where thinner air reduces lift. The Night Stalkers used flight techniques and possibly noise-reducing modifications to delay acoustic detection until they were almost on target. These helicopters fast-roped operators onto rooftops and inserted teams through multiple entry points simultaneously. But when Maduro's presidential guard opened fire, transport helicopters couldn't return effective fire while landing troops. You need a dedicated gunship. That's where the MH-60 DAP comes in to provide fire support. MH-60M DAP. Multiple MH-60 DAPs carried miniguns, 30mm chain guns, rockets, and Hellfire missiles. When Venezuelan guards engaged the assault force, the DAP provided surgical suppressive fire, hitting specific rooftops and watchtowers without leveling entire buildings. One helicopter took small arms fire but remained flyable, showing how intense the fighting was. The DAP's fire support during those crucial minutes let Delta Force maneuver safely. Modern operations rely on unmanned systems at multiple levels. That's where the drone fleet filled critical gaps. RQ-180. The drone was providing heavy jamming environments and it passed data between F-35s using encrypted MATL and older F-18s using Link 16, keeping the entire force sharing a common operating picture. Without this gateway, different aircraft couldn't talk to each other and synchronized timing falls apart. But high-altitude drones can't watch ground movements in detail. Once air defenses were destroyed, the Reaper moved in. MQ-9 Reaper. MQ-9 Reapers orbited for 24 hours straight, carrying Hellfire missiles and paveway bombs. They patrolled escape routes from Fuerte Tiuna, ensuring no vehicle convoys fled, and watched the coastline, preventing Venezuelan Navy boats from intercepting extraction helicopters. These drones provided persistent armed overwatch, striking instantly if threats emerged. Their facial recognition capabilities could identify specific high-value targets trying to escape. At the tactical level, you need something that sees inside buildings before operators breach doors. That's the Black Hornet. Black Hornet Nano UAS. Delta Force operators carried palm-sized Black Hornet drones during the assault. Before breaching steel doors to Maduro's safe room, they flew these through air vents, mapping the interior. They identified exactly where Maduro and his wife were positioned and whether bodyguards were armed. This intelligence meant operators used flashbangs and non-lethal tactics, capturing everyone alive without shooting through doors blind.